Well, I think we're ready to dive in. So, hi everyone and welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today for our end of year wrap up. We're highlighting the top 5 insights of 2022. I am Carrie Janot, VP of Marketing here at Insights Now, and I have the distinct pleasure of moderating today's conversation with Dave Lundahl, our CEO, and Greg Stucky, our Chief Research Officer. Throughout our session, I'll share each key insight, and then Dave and Greg, I'd love your thoughts on it. Okay? And in case anyone is new to our education series, we do Q&A at the end, but throughout the event, feel free to reach out to us using the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom screen. Okay? So let's jump in. So insight 1, sustainability is aspirational for a much larger percent of the population than we expected. And we also learned that sustainability is less attainable than we expected. So, Greg, can you tell us a bit more?
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Yeah, this is my favorite insight, but probably the biggest wow for me personally as we went through this year. I think sustainability is a nice topic and a great endeavor, but I didn't really think because a lot of the data that we have, people just kind of like, yeah, well, it's nice, but and they didn't really give it very much credit. So for me, this was a huge wow that 54% of shoppers are seeking sustainability when they're going into the store. And then, but it is hammered home by that point. Like you said, only 5% of people are actually buying sustainably today. So there's this massive gap, 49% gap in sustainability today. To me, that's a huge insight, definitely applicable to brands across the board, definitely applicable to our life and our planet, and the way people are living their lives today.
Yeah, this really has us thinking that if you look at all the brands that are out there and the products and how they're positioned, very few products that are mainstream really tout the environmental benefit from their use. Now, I have to say that when we went to the Natural Products Expo West in Anaheim this past March, 60% of those products did have positioning as being sustainability first, right? Regenerative and agriculture and all sorts of other sort of ways of thinking about, and touting the benefits.
Certainly, yeah. I think the upcoming brands are there. We saw, upcycling is another big push trend. But we don't know how to talk about upcycling. When we talk to consumers about it, they're like, recycled trash? No, thank you.
Yeah.
And so there's a big gap yet. And I think that gap is huge.
So, of course, the biggest player in terms of at Expo West, and in the last several years, what we're seeing is these plant-based products are becoming into the mainstream. You remember when Beyond and Impossible, when they hit the market, I think it was where they really started accelerating was in 2016. But just recently we're seeing that there's a decline.
Yeah, a little bit.
And those large companies that really were trying to hit the market and plant-based, is something that's definitely environmental friendly, but sure.
Well,
why is it declining this last year?
Certainly price. We know that from the research we've been doing that there's only about half the population can afford the upscaled price that's happening with the plant-based analog meat. We're really in that category, thinking about the prices there. But so there's definitely a challenge to meet a price gap. However, when we do go look at those brands and look at the products on the shelf and the packages, very few of those packages are touting sustainability.
Yeah.
Most of them are still focused on the analog part, the taste part, the ingredients part, the claims, the nutrition claims part.
Right.
So they're just missing. They could.
Right.
There's no reason they couldn't.
That's really has us thinking about it's got to be more than just price. There's
Right.
other factors at play.
Yeah. And Dave, that leads us really well into our second insight. So 47% of people who are buying plant-based meat alternatives today are willing to trade away taste to be more environmentally friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah, 47% willing to trade away taste. You know, that I mean, there. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of really good tasting meat analogs. Like things like Impossible here. With the ground product, you're putting spices, you're putting other flavors into it anyway. So a lot of that is not necessarily always true. But that being said, the 47% willing to trade away taste
Amongst
right amongst the plant-based buyers, right? So that begs the question to me, like, what about the non-plant-based buyers? And when we look at that, only 27% of the people who don't buy plant-based meat are willing to trade away taste. So, I mean, definitely taste is still a huge deal. You can get away with it for a little bit if you have other values. But I think that, if we're trying to bring new people into this category, if we're trying to get more sustainability into people, taste is definitely still a major hurdle for some products.
So what does this mean? You think about it, if you are going out into the market with a product that is not as good as an animal-based product, okay?
Right.
And, not as tasty, and there's a lot of examples
Right.
you can think about that. Then what does that mean?
Well, it means you
What
gotta
do you do?
you gotta pick something other than taste, right? Like if you have a product and you're not going to be, if you're going after bacon, you're not. I mean, as good as some of those plant-based bacon mimics are, and some of them are interestingly good, they're still not bacon, right? They still don't have that full experience. So when there's a gap, you got to play against the other value propositions that are out there, the other differentiators that are available to you. And certainly going back to sustainability, that's got to be one important key piece. And it's much more valuable in terms of the population who are looking for sustainable versus the population who are looking for, say, an ingredient claim like low cholesterol.
Sure. Yeah, that also puts you at risk. I mean, if you go out in the marketplace with a product and with a sustainability first message, okay, what's going to happen when a competitor comes up behind you with the same positioning with a product that tastes a lot better?
Right.
Which one are people going to select?
Yeah, eventually the one that creates a better experience.
Yeah,
for sure.
And so this gets to another sort of insight that we pulled from some of our research this year. That is, the statistic is that we uncovered that 65% of people who bought plant-based meat alternatives, okay, in the past month. Okay, so these brief, they aspire to buy sustainable products.
Yeah.
There's a relationship between those two, as we were talking about earlier.
Right.
So I think this is it's an interesting statistic, isn't it?
Well, I think we had like the fact that people who are buying in the plant-based space are much, much more likely to want sustainability. I mean, I know it's only a portion of the population there, but if you can get to a population who's even that much more into it, sustainability becomes that much more valuable for them, for sure.
Yeah. And people are not getting it.
And they're not getting it.
Yeah.
Right? The gap's huge.
Huge.
Yeah.
So
I think in the plant-based space, it was like 7%, right? We said 5% overall. But I think even in the plant-based space, people who are saying they're buying plant-based meats in the past month, still only 7% of those are saying,
which is
getting the
interesting.
sustainability I want.
Are they not connecting the dots between plant-based and this is a more sustainable product?
Yeah, I think they're definitely not connecting the dots. I think we as an industry must not be doing a very good job of teaching, communicating, getting them, ready to understand the value. Right? We're like maybe too product focused, maybe not enough vision.
So, is this an opportunity for the industry as a whole? I mean, it goes back to, I think,
Sure.
If you can't communicate, is this sort of one of the contributing factors to decline in trust?
Well, certainly, I mean, people got to trust brands. I mean, that's I think why we saw at the expo all these little brands, right? They've got this transparency. They got B Corp status. They got a lot of value going with them. That may or may not be well communicated.
Yeah.
Consumers, certainly in some areas, we
Yeah.
see it's well
Yeah.
communicated, but in
Yeah.
the brand fans,
Yep.
but maybe not in the general public beyond that.
Yeah. And guys, that is the perfect segue to our third highlight here. So only 42% of shoppers trust the food system in the United States. Some more thoughts on that, Dave?
And I'm going to go to the good news. Here's the good news
Awesome.
about that
It's
statistic, which is really kind of shocking. The good news is this is a statistic we've been tracking for the last several years. It is actually up from 39% in 2019, pre-pandemic.
True. Well, and it begs the question: if it's up a little bit, what else can we do to keep that momentum going? I mean, we got a little bit of a gain,
Yeah.
but not much. But what other opportunities do you
Yeah,
have to
so
improve trust?
this is something that I think is really important for brands. Really important. I think there's a three-part answer to this question. But what else can you do to improve trust? I think shoppers, we are discovering through our research, are not looking for government regulators, okay, to help them feel more trusting. That's really interesting, So, in fact, um, uh, trust in federal regulation and regulators is down since 2019 from 50%, 39%.
Yeah, that's a big drop.
I mean, it's huge. Fewer people also are holding government as being responsible for the trust of their food. That's down from 73% to now only 61%. And so anyways, so what are shoppers doing? Okay. And when we further delved into that, we found that people are taking their own responsibility into this. They're taking new actions. They're using where they shop, okay, how they shop, and what products they buy, and what brands they buy, for that matter. Those are the things that they're using to overcome their fears, to overcome these concerns, and so to overcome this sort of rust barrier in the USA food system, And so when people shop online,
Right.
maybe because it's more information, I don't know, but trust goes to 55%.
Yeah.
When people among those that shop at natural food stores, okay, it's 52% or 53%.
Okay.
And if you are a buyer of plant-based products, just the category itself, it goes to 52%. So versus, and I'll go, if you are natural foods versus other stores, it's 41% if you shop at other retailers.
So yeah,
traditional
right,
retailers.
much more in line with the overall.
That's really interesting. So people are taking it on themselves to figure out how to, improve this trust. It's a coping mechanism.
So yeah, absolutely. So coping in with store choices. So they're seeking trust. So the people that are finding all sources are definitely having higher trust.
Yeah.
So there's something that's happening within that natural food online shopping space.
Right.
That so what we might be able to learn something what's happening in that space.
Right.
To understand maybe some other ways to improve trust.
Right. And the third thing that we found was interesting also is that on the flip side, among what types of people and what are people's trust the lowest? And we found that among those that are shopping clean label, So using clean label as a criteria, however people define clean label, if that is their aspiration, that trust drops to 36%. And if you're aspiring to buy clean label, you can't afford it because some of these products are higher,
Right.
it's 30%.
So,
Right.
so is that just a negative outlook on life? Like, I don't want high fructose corn syrup, and it's everywhere I look, and so you're just super distrusting all the time. You feel like stuff's coming.
There's attitudinal aspects to this that are at play. Absolutely. It speaks to plant-based as a category. Why are people buying plant-based? And it's because it improves their trust, whether they view it as something that is better for the environment or just more healthy, or less bad things, like that they're maybe injecting cows with things like that. All those other concerns and fears come.
So likely we're looking at something that's more behavioral. Right. So maybe something more around how people cope, and how they're trying to overcome, the types of coping mechanisms they use in order to alleviate those fears.
Right.
Right now, maybe some of those coping mechanisms aren't working so well, so their trust is still kind of low.
Right.
Whereas the people that are finding the natural grocers, finding the online sources that are providing that trust with that, so it's more of a behavioral thing maybe than it is an attitudinal.
Right. So that leads to really the interesting thing about what people are doing to sort of, are they changing their behaviors? Are they seeking more ways to change their behaviors to help them have a better feeling and outlook in life, or to achieve things that are aspirational but still a gap in their life?
Yeah, very important.
Yeah.
That's right on cue.
That is right on cue. And really, as we think about, what people are doing as far as the lifestyle changes, self-deprivation, our next insight, is again just the perfect segue here, guys. So self-deprivation for the purposes of self-improvement is really incredibly common behavior, with 52% of people participating in self-deprivation events. So Greg, back to you.
This one was another one that caught me by surprise. Twofold. Number one, I didn't think that many people participated in self-deprivation things like, dryuary and, doing, food, desert events and things like that. I mean, I see it from the health and wellness standpoint. I see all the, hey, I'm going to run, 12 5Ks in a month or whatever. And honestly, when I saw this, I was like, well, okay, maybe more people are going on, crash diets or self-dep diets than I thought. But that's not actually what the data says. The data says 81% of the people who are doing self-deprivation are doing it because they want to improve their inner self. So it's about personal self-improvement, improving your self-disciplines, improving yourself. The health and wellness aspect was only like 48% of the people coming into self-deprivation. So only half the people doing this were actually doing it for a health and wellness specific reason. The vast majority are actually doing it for some sort of personal self-improvement. Yeah. So self-improvement, that's really aspirational.
Right.
So I think that means people are much more driven by their aspirations than they are by some of the maybe other aspects of attitudes or things that people just kind of intuit that might be driving.
Yeah, I mean, you think of need states, Maslow's need states, and the stuff that is the lowest. What on that, like if you're food insecure, you're going to be price driven. But think about the aspirations to go further up. That does drive a lot of behaviors, especially people's desire to change their behaviors or things that are more aspirational. It begs the question: so how can brands take advantage of these insights, this type of information?
Well, number one, so a look at what people are trying to do. They are very aspirational. So first and foremost, brands got to connect with those aspirations, right? You've got to be able to connect with that idea of self improvement in order to get there. So that's, like you said, top of the Maslow's pyramid, essentially. Mm-hmm. However, one of the things we asked people when we looked at self-deprivation is what they were doing. So when you deprive yourself of something else has to take its place. Mm-hmm. So, we didn't know what was taking it. I mean, it could be just sitting around scrolling on your smartphone for all we knew, right? But what we saw was the top two things that people were looking for was, number one, distractions, and number two, sensory experience. Mm. So one of the things that was interesting, that was, 61%, I wrote down the number here, were looking for distractions, and 78% looking for distractions, and 61% of the people looking for sensory experiences, or were coping using sensory experiences. So that means that as brands and products, especially in the food and beverage space, you can definitely help people by creating sensory experiences that help them cope, that are enjoyable experiences, et cetera, so forth. Right. So you can definitely look at product portfolios, identify those things that have that good sensory distractive, high impact, right, and you can use those either for comfort or for energy or for wherever your self-deprivation is working.
Yeah, so it's probably two parts. One is if you think of coping mechanisms, mm-hmm, this is one way you can provide these new ways, these new coping mechanisms through how you design and develop products for brands. But you can also then, the same way, help people achieve their highest level aspirations where they have gaps, where they're not able to fulfill those higher level aspirations in their lives.
Absolutely. I think that's exactly right. They're doing this deprivation because there's something right? There's something they want changed in life. And if you can be that means to help them achieve a better life, all the greater. And I think what's missing is that a lot, if you just think it's health and wellness related, I think that's one of the big ahas too.
So the whole idea of lifestyle brand speaks
very well.
If you could become a lifestyle brand, fulfilling someone's higher level aspirations and alleviate their fears as a coping mechanism, you have a winner.
Absolutely. Wow. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's certainly really interesting. And I think that 52% of the people engaging in self-deprivation is an interesting number because they're already
disrupted.
Which means you don't have to do the marketing work. You don't have to put the dollars.
They're open for change.
They're already open for change. Yeah. So because you're in that spot, you have the opportunity to leverage their disruptiveness, and that means that you could start your own self-deprivation, right? You could connect in with existing campaigns, et cetera, so forth. People going through self-deprivation, there's going to be sites, websites, there's opportunities to advertise in places where people are already disrupted. And that they're seeking distraction, and they're seeking sensory experiences, so you can lean heavily into those things.
Right.
So certainly very valuable. I think it's got some opportunities. Now, on top of that, there's one other number that I think is really cool, and that's that 86% of the people who used a new product during a self-deprivation exercise said that post self-deprivation, when they completed their little journey, 86% of them included that product in their ongoing lifestyle. So it's incredibly valuable.
That's a big number.
Yeah, super sticky.
Very super sticky. Yeah. It's stickiness is incredible for brands. So it begs the question that I had: is that did we see any sort of differences in gender? In terms of this behavioral change, self-deprivation, and what people are seeking to fulfill these aspirations or do you see anything in age? Like, are younger people or older people more apt to engage in these types of changes in behavior?
That actually is another piece that maybe is a non-finding that's really maybe a really important finding, which was there weren't any differences. there weren't any major skews in any demographic that
Yeah.
we looked at,
Oh,
which means
yeah.
that, I think that points to the fact that there's some stability across the aspirational space, right? Self-improvement is an everybody endeavor. It's not just for people who are older in life and finally want to change, or younger
Right.
people who are trying to seek newness. It's an everybody thing. So that means it doesn't really matter, you're like, as a brand, you're not confined to, hey, if I'm only targeting, young women, that doesn't leave me out, if you
Right.
will, right? If I only have a very targeted niche, chances are that group still could be doing a lot of self-deprivation oriented exercises and becoming very disrupted. So certainly a great opportunity. I think, understanding people and being able to get to their levels of demographic information that help us understand who they are and what their identity is important. And in this case, you're kind of have an open field.
Yeah. Yeah. Really.
All
Hmm.
right. Well, this topic of demographics leads us perfectly to our next really important topic. So, our final insight to cover is around DEI. And this year, we participated in a study with the Insights Association that really was looking at the best way to ask about race and ethnicity in surveys. And a key insight from the results is that no matter how you ask it, you're going to make at least 10% of the people angry.
Yeah. Well, this was a super fun collaboration. Amazing group of incredibly bright researchers coming together. So this was actually a really fun collaboration on a topic that I think is meaningful, because we do a ton of surveys in life. The industry as a whole does a lot of surveys. And one of the questions is, how do you get it right people? And one of the things that we were able to bring to the table is the ability to look at a person's implicit emotional reaction when they saw a specific question. So when that happens, how do people react when they get shown a question that asks them to self-identify their ethnicity, race,
Yeah.
culture? And one of the things that was kind of fascinating is that there's no perfect question out there, and no matter how you ask it, you're going to get at least 10%. And sometimes, if you ask it wrong, even more. At least 10% of the people are going to be mad just because you asked the question.
Hmm.
So I think it's an interesting point that we want to take care of people, so we've got to be cognizant of that.
Empathy is really important. I think that's sort of the mindset going in, that, we need to take care of people and use that mindset. If people are going to be, sort of targets for brands, to use that word, people don't like that. I'm going to be pigeonholed because that's not necessarily me. Or if you bring in participants for research, also, you don't want to have them not really being upset,
Oh yeah.
and not engaged, which could be the issue. So,
Well, yeah.
anyway, yeah. So how do you design your research that way so you can really avoid or minimize
that impact? Because that impact is high. So number one, don't ask if you don't need, right? If you don't need to know something about a person's identity, if you don't have a clear business criteria for that, if you're just kind of speaking and going, I wonder if there's a pattern here,
right?
Not really a good reason to include that information. Now, if you ask, you should make sure you include information about it. Explain it to people. This is why we want this information. This is how we're going to use it. This is what we're hoping to learn and hoping to find. And then number three would be asking it at the end of your research instead of up front. Certainly, there's cases where if you're targeting groups, you're asking it up front. However, knowing that you might have 10% of your people upset, as an example, that emotion feeds through and halos across all the rest of the research. And so you're actually going to get some pretty poor data if you start with questions that make people upset. So your data quality will definitely suffer. So put it at the end. Don't ask it if you don't need it. And if you do need to ask it, give a good explanation of what you're looking for and why that's going to be helpful in your research process.
So there wasn't was there any optimal, any perfect way in which you could ask those questions,
Perfect way?
even if it's at the end?
There's no perfect bullet, right? Like we said here with 10% being angry, that was the best one. Still had 10% being angry. So there's no perfect way, but what we did find was that maybe contrary to maybe popular thought is that the longer set of answers that you can give for people, the more ways that you can give classify themselves, the better people felt like they were able to express who they are and what they are. The other thing is that the race, ethnicity, cultural heritage, those are very munged in people's brains. And we as researchers may understand the differences between race and ethnicity, but a lot of consumers and the general people in panels, to them, that's not very separate in their minds, right? That's all part of that cultural background, self-identity. And so being able to offer a deeper, richer list that covers all those places helps as well.
So as a researcher, showing your empathy that you're going beyond the standard, I'm going to click, Caucasian, white, black, Latino, whatever, it's a where people are no longer able to really self-identify and that actually must lead to better trust that the researcher is really trying to understand me and really utilize this information in the best way.
And it goes, especially if you're in a branded way, right? So it goes against the research organization, that trust, that in who you are as an organization. But if you have a branded search, if you're doing a concept review or a new product review, and you start out with that, then it's also bringing that trust that you as a brand are taking care of people as well. So certainly it overlays into building trust if you can take care of people. I mean, at the end of the day, we want to make people have great lives, and there's really to start pigeonholing people into buckets is not a really fantastic way to help people improve their lives. First and foremost, always about people, and that we have to remember that. Sometimes you get stuck in it. It's all about the research and what I have to learn. No, not really. It's about improving people's lives. It's about having a cleaner, healthier, happier world. And you gotta change your thinking process when it comes to types of questions.
Yeah, and that's really, really well said. And honestly, looking back at our top 5 insights for the year, they're really all about people because the reality is in insights, it's really the unexpected human truths, and the more we strive to understand people and their aspirations and their behaviors, the better we could actually serve them. So thank you, Dave and Greg. I really appreciate you taking us through these key insights. Thank you so much to the audience as well for joining us today. And we hope we've given you some helpful perspectives to carry you into 2023. We do have, go ahead, Dave.
Just to make one point, I mean, it's been a tremendous year that we've been able to uncover a lot of fantastic insights and worked in so many people, so it's just the insights industry is a joy to work with. You're understanding people, but also it's the people in the industry itself. We feel real blessed. I feel real blessed to have not only the staff I work with day in, day out, but just so many people throughout the industry to work with. And I want to wish everyone, we got our picture here, which is more of a holiday picture as we get ready for the holidays. So wishing everybody fantastic holidays moving forward as our last webinar of this calendar year.
Yeah. And we do have some time for questions. But first, I did want to mention that we do have great sessions lined up with some exciting guests to be joining us in 2023. So you could use the QR code on the screen and register for our ongoing series while we cover your questions.
So hopefully we spark some questions here.
That's right.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and pose this to you guys. So One question we have here is, do you think that these five key topics all intertwine with each other? You mentioned that diversity inclusion impacts trust. Do you think this concept influences trust in the market as well?
Mm. That's an I think it does from the vantage point of the people who are get involved in research. You either feel like you're an insider, right, and you're helping develop the next great product, or you feel like what the heck are these people thinking, right? And which is the people who are getting angry are like, they don't know me. What are they? What's going on in their brain? And so I think you're right. When you've got product ideas, if you set people up right, you treat them well in research, they're going to help you because they're aspirational, and you got to lean into their aspirations. So yeah, I do think these are fairly well intertwined. We certainly see like sustainability, aspirations, trust. All these things definitely go hand in glove.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a one and all by itself.
Yeah. The way I like to think of it is that whether you're working on the product side, so doing insights for product developers, whether you are a product developer or whether you're working in the innovation space, creating new product opportunities, or whether you're working in the brand side and trying to understand how to position brands as sort of the relationship that that shoppers, consumers will have with you. I think this idea of aspirations really cuts across all three areas. Aspirations is certainly important for brands because it's where do brands play? You know, how do brands really come into people's lives? And the more you can work up, the Maslow's needs states and work at different levels to fulfill people's lives. I think that's a great place for brands today, these lifestyle brands especially. And if your innovation is your area, well, certainly, because brands are only as good as your product, right? So and brands need to continue to evolve. So I think the idea of aspirations and gaps to look for, okay, what sort of qualities do you want to go after in terms of creating opportunities? And then last but certainly not least, when you're in designing and development of products, if you're a product insights professional or a product developer for that matter, you need to understand how do you build into products cues. It's not just about taste. Taste is important, but you can go beyond taste and you can build into products cues that signal the benefit, the signal, that this is something that is going to fulfill my aspirations or overcome my fears as a coping mechanism. That's a great challenge for you as well.
Yeah, and it goes like even sustainability. Then if you're going to build innovative ideas and you've got ESG goals as a corporation,
Oh, yeah.
you should be putting those not after you've come up with the idea. Now, how do we make it sustainable? You should be putting that in all the way up to the very forefront of what you're doing. And we have to remember, I mean, now, aspirations, certainly some of these things are very, on the high end. There are still people who really need to hit those aspirations that still keep the price in line too. So you've got to think about your entire portfolio of services and products that you bring out and being able to hit on different component pieces of those key moments in people's lives where they are looking for that opportunity. There's a lot of times, like I said, people that are food insecure, we still have to deliver,
Right.
against their aspirations, which are basically quality food that I don't feel, it's still serving that I can afford,
Yeah.
that still keeps me, healthy as a person.
Right.
So there's definitely some opportunities there as well.
Yep.
All right. I'm not seeing any more questions. So I think we're good to
Okay.
wrap.
All right.
Thank you again,
Fantastic.
everyone. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Greg.
Great. I enjoyed the conversation.
Been good.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thanks for for joining in. I hope this conversation sparked something on your side, and that's hopefully aspirational.